Welcome to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast, where our purpose is to help create a better future. Learn from our world's experts how to improve your organisation sustainably. Learn how to achieve and sustain an excellence journey for yourself, others, and the planet.
And I'm your host, Brad Jevons, coming to you from Brisbane, Australia. We are proudly brought to you in association with SA Partners, a world-leading business transformation consultancy. SA Partners are a truly purposeful company focused on helping organisations achieve sustainable improvement for themselves, others, and the planet.
Welcome to episode 151 of the Enterprise Excellence Podcast. It is such a pleasure to have Mr. Joe Montalbano and Brad Lehman on the show with us today. Joe and Brad have an extensive background in Agile across a wide variety of industries. They are the authors of the new book, Human Centred Agile, a unified approach to better outcomes. This is such an important topic for organisations looking to achieve great outcomes with Agile. Often with Agile, we can become too focused on the system and lose focus on the human factors it was designed to foster and create. I'm really looking forward to this conversation today. It's a key topic for me too, and I'm looking forward to getting into the show. Let's get into it. Joe and Brad, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having us.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so guys, I'll start with Joe. What got you involved in the world of Agile?
Well, I came up as a developer and an architect, and I'm old enough to remember when we were actually excited about applying, engineering project management practices to software development, the same way we would apply them to building a bridge or a skyscraper. And we thought that was going to have very good outcomes. And it didn't. And I was on a troubled project, as many people were, and somebody said, our only way out is Agile. And we tried it, and it worked, and it just spoke to me as the way people ought to be working and collaborating with each other. It just kind of clicked with me, and I decided, I want to do this for the rest of my career.
Yeah, nice.
And that was back in 2005.
Yeah, wow. That's neat. And Brad, what about yourself, mate? What got you involved?
So I've been a user experience professional for over 20 years, and I've been working in Agile for about 15 years. And I always joke that I almost ran screaming from this industry because in my first few years, I spent a lot of time on like these big design books and requirements books, and they never got built. It was just, I felt like I was writing manuscripts that no one would ever read. Mm-hmm. And then I got put onto an Agile team, one that was trying to rescue a project that had worked that way with a design up front. And it was really exciting because I could make stuff, and then I could see that stuff actually move out into the world. And so there was a lot of opportunity there. There was also a lot of challenge there, which is why we're here.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? I guess. Yeah, there's ways to deploy Agile and there's ways to deploy Agile, isn't there? And that's the key question I got here is, why did you both choose to write a book on human-centered Agile? Because I'm guessing there's some answers in that.
Well, I can start with mine, which sort of leads off of where I just said is, when I started working in Agile, I had to teach my teams what does it mean to be doing human-centered design, which is basically just combining design and research and making sure that the person that you're designing for is represented throughout the software delivery lifecycle, not just at one phase up in discovery or one phase at the end of the usability testing, but you really want to be making decisions with an actual customer and an actual understanding of them in mind all the way through that process. And teaching teams how to do that became something I had to do from every project to project, product to product, and eventually program to program, where, you really had to talk to the Agilists, the POs about like, what do we do and why are we doing it? What's the value of doing it this way? And why should you bring in these practices? And so now I can't, talk to every team. And so Joe and I wrote this book. Joe, what was your...
I can remember, so Brad and I worked for competing consulting companies, but working for the same client, so large government agency. And I remember I was facilitating, I think it was a PI planning meeting. And Brad was talking about acceptance criteria, and he was kind of standing up, getting into an area that I kind of felt like it was really my turf. And I kind of listened to him talk, and I said, yeah, I don't know who this guy is, but we got to go have a sandwich or something because this guy gets it. And we ended up having an opportunity to work closely together. Our government client wanted to combine Agile with human-centered design, wanted sort of the best of both worlds. I did not know how to spell human-centered design. So, Brad held my hand and walked me through the process. And I just discovered that there was value there that I think we're missing in a regular Agile implementation. This idea that the product owner knows everything.
Mm.
How does the product owner know?
Yeah.
And do they really know, right? So
Yeah.
had a lot of fun with Brad asking those questions, and here we are.
Nice.
For me, the joy of working with Joe is we were on a project that was running safe, and I had never tried to bring HCD to that kind of scale before, and Joe is fully an expert in that. So we had many lunches and many conversations about how do you actually do this? Okay, how do you do this in this context? How do you do this in that context? How do you get people on board? And there was a lot. I mean, when I say we had many lunches talking about this stuff. So that was really the genesis of the book.
And it was back when it was pre-COVID, so we had the opportunity to be in person and to can we just go in a room together and vent? And there was a lot of that.
Isn't it great, having a peer or a colleague or a friend to be able to bounce ideas off and explore? Because without it, how do we reflect? How do we truly adapt? How do we truly help organizations get better outcomes? That's invaluable. Guys, what are the key factors that an organization needs to consider to create more human-centered agile rather than traditional, where we talk about maybe the product owner as the whole foundation of that, and how connected is he or she actually with the customer?
So I think there's a few ways to think about this. You can think about it from an organizational level, where when you think about what are the factors, where you need leadership support and you need a willingness to bring an agile mindset into not just the solution space, where we often see teams are really good at setting up agile delivery, but they don't really bring it into the problem space where you're actually trying to learn about the customer or trying to ideate different solutions and test them, especially without delivering production level code. That's, one of the things that we see over and over again is that people the idea is you have to deliver, the code is the work, and you have to deliver production quality software. Sometimes that's an expensive way to find out you were wrong about something.
Yeah.
So how do you shift that upstream? How do you shift that learning upstream and keep that agile mindset in the problem space too? You can talk about program level stuff, and we go into this in the book quite a lot, team topology, or how to build a research roadmap where you're actually evaluating the stakes of the research against the product roadmap that you have, so that you're doing the right amount of research. How to put in ops, like design ops or research ops, so that you're not having a lot of teams basically reproducing work that could have been shared and distributed. And getting people to buy in, at that program level in the purpose of the work that you're doing. So we talk about, in discovery, you're trying to either explore what users want, or you're trying to validate a problem. In ideation, you're trying to get people to think laterally and think about, okay, what are the ways, not what is the way we will solve the solution, but what are the ways that we could solve the problem that we've set out for ourselves? And then how do we evaluate that? How do you do, concept validation? How do you do solution validation? We talk a lot about, we want to be solving the right problem, we want the right solution, and we want it done right. And those are actually three different things. And making sure that those are in the team. And then we talk at a team level, there are 6 factors of success that we have found over and over. The first is true of any Agile. It's an engaged product owner. The second is access to users. You cannot be human-centered agile if you don't have the humans at the center. You're something else at that point. You need time to incorporate your findings. So you go out and you do some research. Well, that's supposed to change what you do next. You're supposed to actually take that learning and apply it. Just as you should with Agile, just as you should when there's an MVP and a series of iterations and feedback. This just sort of brings some of those practices through the delivery cycle and not just at the end of them. This is one of my favorite ones that Joe added, permission to fail fast. I always like to put fail in scare quotes because you are validating or invalidating an idea, and either one is the appropriate thing to do.
And it's not a failure. As long as you learn something, it's not a failure. So I don't even like that word, but here we are.
what you replace that, this is what you've replaced that for me with, Joe, is making a pivot or persevere decision. When you're doing concept validation, you should go in knowing that your objective is to figure out, okay, are we actually following this path where it leads, or are we shifting because it wasn't fruitful? So the last two are metrics that are tied to experience. So it's very common and very tempting for people to look at their North Star, their revenue or their customer base or whatever it is that they're looking at and saying, that's what I need to go up, and that's the only thing I care about. I hear that often. But it's a bit like saying, I don't care how the engine works, I just want the car to go fast. Like, you need to care about how the engine works, otherwise the car won't go fast. You need to care how people are experiencing your product, otherwise you're not actually going to get the business outcomes that you want, the user outcomes that your users want. Like, you need to understand how they're doing. And finally, you want design integrated on the team holistically. So it's not, design isn't a thing that happens at the beginning. Usability testing isn't a thing that happens just at the end. There is a design approach, usually led by a designer on the team. Sometimes they're embedded, not always. Every team is a little bit different in how they'll handle that. But you still want those processes to carry along with the team, and you want a team that owns a problem that they're solving and an impact, an actual outcome that they're trying to generate, and not just, feature cramming.
That's what it's about for me. Is what outcome are we trying to achieve? We're not checking these boxes or just doing these stories. We're delivering an outcome for our users. And what do we want that outcome to be? So I care a lot more about the outcome delivered than the number of stories we did, or God help us, the number of story points we did. Don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
I stopped really story points years ago.
Yeah, it's the outcome, the vision, the ultimate goals we're chasing. That's the result. And then there may be adaptation and design and thinking that's needed in the team every iteration that they're doing. That's neat.
And that's where Agile teams, that's their sweet spot. And so let's set them up to work in their sweet spot.
Yeah.
Let's not fight the system. Let's work with the system.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so, guys, we need an engaged PO, product owner in the process, that person who's helping have that outcome alignment, that strategic alignment, but also that connection to the customer, the user. We need access to the users within teams. We need time to learn and actually do that learning and that reflection and that adaptation that comes from that. We need permission to fail and fail fast, because as long as we learn from that, then we need metrics that are tied to a user experience that actually gets us thinking that way and improving that way. And then we need design integrated into the team, so that outcome or vision-driven type work by the team that allows them to think, to design, to adapt themselves. Is that the 6 key ones?
Yeah, you got them.
Let's delve into them a little bit more. Joe, what does an engaged product owner look like, mate? What does that look like? What did you cover in the book on that?
So without disparaging anyone, product owners are bell curve, right? There are some product owners that are the most awesome. I happen to work with a couple of really, really good product owners right now. They understand the space, they understand the competitors, the product, what the end users are wanting out of it, and they're good. And you can ask them any question, and they will give you a good answer. But I've worked with other product owners sometimes that were new to the role or new to the space, or sometimes they were not qualified for the role. They were just they happened to be walking by and they had availability, and the boss said, "I need a product owner, and you're it." So for me, an engaged product owner needs to have their finger on the pulse of the users. So if it's somebody who came up in the business and they were a user once and they know the users, that's great. But if it's not that person, then we have all of these wealth of tools and techniques that HCD brings to the table that we can help educate our product owner, or as we like to say, give teams tools to potentially prove their product owner wrong sometimes.
Yeah, nice. And that it's such an important role, isn't it? Because like what we're about is serving users and creating great experiences and outcomes, and it's such a pivotal position there. Yeah, I can hear that. Brad, the access to users, when you've got myriad of teams and you're executing, they're executing work and driving work towards an outcome and better experiences, what does that look like, access to users, and how can organizations go about that across multiple Scrum teams?
So yeah, if you've got a portfolio or program that has a bunch of products, a bunch of common users that would be applicable to more than one product, you're gonna want to drive a recruitment strategy. You're gonna want to set up, as part of research operations, how do you engage with people? How do you invite them in? How do you actually work with them? You might want to have templates for things like your learning objectives and your research plans, so that people get a similar experience regardless of who in your program they're talking to. You want to have a sense of voice. You want to have a sense of purpose. And not for nothing, you actually want to make sure that you're contacting people at a sustainable rate. Like, you don't want to fatigue the people that respond to you, because that's not healthy. You want to get a good range of voices, not sort of the same people, and you definitely don't want to burn those folks out. One of the things to think about, and this happens all the time, you sometimes get access to some users, you sometimes get access to people that work with users. I like to think about fidelity. So like if I'm working with a user, someone who's actually actively using our product today, I have the highest fidelity kind of user, right? And there might be multiple kinds of users that you want to talk to, but that is as close as you get. Then when you start like moving a little away from that, you get people that support users. You get like help desk, or you get people that maybe are customer success type people who work with users as they're trying to onboard or something like that. And you get a slightly different, slightly lower fidelity view. Or you get trainers or former users, or ex users and stuff like that. And the further away you get from the person using the product, sort of the decrease you get in fidelity to what someone using your product today is experiencing. So you want to be mindful, as you talk to as many users as you can. I say as many, actually. You choose how many users you should talk to, and sort of what the right number and level of effort is for what you're doing. But you get access to the users you can, and then you start trying to fill in learning where you need to. And that's pretty normal.
Yeah, that's neat. That's neat. And so there's got to be some sort of structure to it, I hear, if you have multiple teams releasing to the same users, you got to have some sort of structure to it to have that common experience when it comes to the sprint review or that engagement piece. But you need also that, like, some structure to avoid overcooking certain customers or users, depending, because some of our listeners mightn't be full in depth on Agile. So really, for those listeners that aren't fully in depth on Agiles yet, users are the people, the customers using the product. That's where the word user comes from.
It's funny, I try to avoid that. Oh, let me throw one more in there, which is you probably want an insight repository. So as you have a bunch of teams doing their own research, you don't want the research to only inform that decision that they're making today. You want it to be available. You want their learnings to be available across your program. So you put together an insight repository that lets people sort of search and borrow off of work other people have done.
Yeah, that is awesome.
And oh, by the way, when you get new team members, that insight repository really helps you onboard them quickly.
Yeah, I could imagine. It's like it would be gold because it shows, and it would show the trends in user sentiment or customer sentiment and customer evolution too, which would be amazing. Yeah. Have you seen a system that works well there, guys? Like, I've got to admit, my brain just went to some sort of blog feed that captures that data and is creating a feed. But what have you seen that works really well in that sort of depository of user insights and info?
There are tools that do that now. My current company uses a tool called Dovetail, where it supports, like if you're doing interviews, it supports tagging and findability across these things. I've honestly built them out of Confluence or wiki style pages if you have to. Like, you don't necessarily need a specific software. You need to sort of understand what is it that we're trying to get out of these research artifacts, and how do we help. One of the best things that you can do, and one of the things that we do often as researchers, is we calibrate our findings into sort of a bite, snack, or meal approach, where like you get your highest level summary. These are the 3 to 5 insights that we really want you to understand. You get sort of the 2-paragraph or 3-paragraph, like if you had an executive summary, this is how we found it out. This is why we think we know it. And then, there are product owners, there are people in strategy that will want to be able to dig into the full report and actually see the data. So you want to be able for people to sort of step their way through the level of detail that they need to have confidence in what you've done.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Now, Joe, I was keen to chat to you on this one with time to learn. Like, what's that look like? Because I can understand in many agile or small teams, they can just end up being focused on execution and execute,
right.
Get faster.
Execution for the sometimes there's blinders, and everything that the team is going to do has to be consumed in this sprint. Well, sometimes the sort of activities that Brad and I are talking about need to be planned in advance, right? That's why you need the roadmap, the research roadmap to plan them. Sometimes there is a mindset shift that you need to take with an agile team that tells them, it's okay for us to spend some cycles this sprint engaging with users and recording some insight that we're going to use in the next sprint, or maybe 2 sprints from now, because you can't just grab your users and get them into a room when you need them. We have to kind of plan this. I've experienced some pushback from teams that didn't think that was a good idea at first because it didn't feel agile. And I asked them why, and they said, well, we're supposed to be building something and then iterating on it. I said, well, yeah, but what if the thing that you build is wrong? Well, we'll iterate on it. But what if you could build a better thing from the very first delivery? If you had the tools to do that, would you do? Well, sure, yes, I would. Great. Then let's try it as an experiment. Let's engage with some users. Tell me how you think it works, and have some flexibility with me. Yes, I'm going to ask you to do some things this sprint that you're not going to consume this sprint. It's okay. Don't panic. It will work out. Trust me.
So for this, for our sprint backlog, we're going to mainly prioritize some research and understanding and collaboration with users more, and going deeper on certain topics and learning time.
We're going to identify the areas in that backlog based on their stakes that need HCD research, and we're going to assign HCD resources to that according to its stakes. And sometimes we look into the next sprint. Sometimes we look several sprints away in order to plan that.
Yeah, that's neat. It sounds to me like that real, just taking that time to breathe too, because it can sometimes, you can easily get sucked into that vortex of execute. And yes, we're going to release something and learn, but we're going to do that really quick. And do we really learn fully? And so,
and that's why the teams need some time to take in that research and those interactions and to just become one with it. You need some breathing time.
Yeah.
Well,
I can
so
imagine too.
Joe mentioned.
Oh, sorry, Brad.
Go ahead, Brad.
I was going to say, Joe mentioned the stakes. And one of the things that we talk about is that the stakes of every MVP are not the same, or the stakes of every release are not the same. So you want to, like, if MVP means that you're going to spend, months building, multiple features and code so that there's enough to release, you want it to be small, you want it to be easy. But that's not always how it is. So if the stakes are high, you want to put some effort up front in figuring out, are you delivering the right solution? Beyond the cost, like, how much will this MVP cost us anyway? There are reputational stakes. If you launch something and it flops, that can actually be a bad look for an organization.
Yeah, back your brand.
If you're launching something new, and you have a big marketing push behind it, or you have awareness campaigns behind it, well, you're going to get a lot of people that are willing to try it once. And if it doesn't work the first time, they're not going to stick around for you to sort of iterate your way to the better product. You're going to lose. So the idea here is in Agile, you want the stakes to be as small as possible. You want to get the lowest cost MVP, the thing that will support learning. You want to figure out how to learn, with pilots or A/B tests or anything else as quickly as you can. There are ways to learn even quicker than that when the stakes are high enough that you actually want to know something. So that's where I think the big change in mindset is, that you don't only get to learn after you've done a whole lot of work and taken a big risk.
Yeah, no, that's great. Brad, I'll go. Next question for yourself, mate, bouncing on the questions, is the permission to fail fast and learn. I want to ask you that question, mate, in relation to the part that leadership play in this. Like, what's your stance on leadership in this and the part they play within an Agile organization, and that culture of permission to fail fast and learn?
So I think you've hit on something really important, which is, I think that is sometimes the hardest part of the mindset to shift, is that, leadership is leadership for a reason. And they want to say, like, this is what we're going to do, and have it go all the way through. And sometimes it's uncomfortable to say, like, there's a really good chance you're right. There's also a possibility that you're wrong. Let's make sure that you're spending your money wisely. Let's make sure that you're spending your time, like you're investing well. Before you go further, and give some kind of structure and scaffolding to some big important decisions. But it's not an easy mindset to shift at all.
Yeah, it'd be tough. And guys, what do you find with leadership in teams? You got the Scrum Master and the product owner, and having that autonomy in the team versus the Scrum Master and product owner starting to play some more of a leadership role themselves. What's your thoughts on that position there, and this whole piece of culture and permission to fail and learn fast?
The whole servant leadership, or a true leader who serves business.
Yeah.
I'm always uncomfortable anytime I hear a Scrum Master described as a project manager. And if you ever want to get terrified, go out to LinkedIn sometime and just type in Scrum Master, and you'll see all of these job postings for we need a project manager, parentheses, Scrum Master. Well, gosh, what am I supposed to take away from that? What does that tell me? How does that tell me management views their Scrum Masters? It tells me that management views them as product or project managers, and that's not helpful to a team.
So for me, I think one way to think about this is that if you have a PO, a Scrum Master, if you have your whole team, frankly, sort of invested in understanding and solving a problem, then you're sort of facing the right direction together. And, whether they, being a leader at that point means sort of turning around and facing inward and saying, like, these are the challenges that we're having, help us solve them. It's not about sort of command decision direction of a team. It's about making sure that their path is cleared. And if you're all sort of solving the same problem, if you're all sort of invested in outcomes and not just, driving features or amount of code produced, then you're going to be in really good shape.
Yeah. And you have the different team members step up at the different time, depending on what the challenge is. And yeah, you're creating
and
that
teams,
organism.
the members of teams, just sort of universally in my experience, like there are different appetites for wanting to do that. Some people really want to get in there and solve those, like understand why, understand how, be invested in key decisions and design. Some people, and this is regardless of the role, some people try to take more of a service approach where it's like, give me the requirements. Let me kind of stay in here and do what I do best. And I think as long as the team overall has that problem solving mindset, then you can have a little bit of flexibility with individual team members stepping up or sort of being in their lane. I think as long as collectively you have a good face at the problem, a good view at the problem in the horizon, then you're doing well.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Brad. Joe, with the topic number 5 of metrics tied to experience, what does that look like, and what are some decent metrics tied to customer experience that you've seen?
Yeah, so I can tell you the metrics that I don't like. Let's start with them. Story points, velocity, burn down, kind of not so much. Things that I do like are really quick heuristic metrics that you can get that lets you know what direction that you're going in. So NPS is widely criticized for potentially for some good reason, but it's used because it boils down into one number. Does it oversimplify? Yeah, it might. Are there some other scores like the system usability scale that I really like? Absolutely. Administer that to your users. That will give you a much more holistic snapshot of what their interaction with your system is like. Are they able to do their jobs with your system? Are they able to solve their problems? Are they frustrated? Do they just shake their heads and walk away? And what does your trend look like? Now, it's not always going to go up. You're going to have some fluctuations, but over time, is your system getting better? Are your users getting happier? I like stuff like that. I'm interested in Brad's take.
So one of the things that I think is that I would say is you want a nice healthy mix of like behavioral metrics and attitudinal metrics so that you're getting a sense, what are people doing? And that gives you a sense of where you might have issues. Then you have attitudinal metrics, which drive a little bit more towards why. And I think as long as you're keeping your eye on both of those things, what they are will be different from product to product. So Joe talked about like SUS and getting a good SUS score. Like that's a really valuable thing. But you can use surveys well. You can use, help desk tickets is a metric that's telling you something. Or, depending on what your product or your service is, you're going to have your own set of behavioral metrics that are probably what you track. Just make sure that you're also tracking something attitudinal in there, that you have a way of gathering whether people are happy, satisfied, delighted, frustrated, whatever they are, so that you can get that sense of overall progress.
I'm guessing that ties back a lot to our discussion on being connected with customers or users, as we call them, so that you can get to that deeper, or how do you feel? What are you thinking about this, to that attitude level? The final one, Brad, I was going to ask you is design integrated into teams. So we were talking about a team having, they're outcome driven, they're vision driven, they're goal driven, and then they have that capability to actually design and adapt. What does that look like?
So this is like with Joe, I can start with what it doesn't look like, which is the first portion of my career where design documents would be handed off to a development team. And there'd be a very much an over the transom set of like, here's what we would love it if you would do. And then the development team would do whatever of it they could. And being motivated to deliver, efficiently would make choices. When you have design embedded, you actually, those changes that you need to make along the way, there's a designer somewhere in that process. There's, there's someone that helped create what you're building that can come back and say, okay, like, here's the reason we did that. Here's the problem we were solving. And talk with developers about how else might we do this if it's not available to us. One of the things that starts to happen when you make this shift is that a lot of the other members of the team, devs, BAs, even Agilists sometimes start really seeing in a design thought process, what problems are we trying to solve through the design and how do we do that? And you start getting a much sort of more robust representation. So people start thinking, okay, here are the different avenues. What is it that we're trying to do? And what are the trade-offs in the design of doing it? Rather than just, what's technically expedient, or what's the fastest out the door, what's within my own personal skill set. That's another one that comes up often. And actually thinking sort of with that customer in mind as you go. Often it looks like embedded designers, but certainly not always.
Mm. And I can understand to enable that, you've got to have teams that are connected to users or customers as close as you can get it. So they're doing that design thinking based on that customer centricity.
And I'll go one step further. One of the things that you want to do if you're doing research is you want to bring the rest of the team, your devs and your BAs, into that research process. We often have them serve as note takers or even just observers, so they can see users working with the product that they're building, and delight or frustration. It's no longer theoretical or abstract. It's actually very visceral, and you see a change that happens in people when they actually get to watch people use their product.
When I was a developer, there was not one single time did I observe a user using my system that I didn't learn something from. What? They're doing it like, no, that's not what I intended when I built it. Nonetheless, users will be users.
Yeah, it's too true. And I guess we can all experience as we're engaging with products, and we get frustrated or can't find a button or can't find what we need, and that's just what you're describing. It's the only way to learn is from the people using the physical thing as close as you can. So guys, I really appreciate it. Like, I'm looking forward to the book launch and everything that you have to come with this. It's going to be amazing. On the topic, I'll go to both of you. Joe, what would be your enterprise excellence 2-minute tip on human-centered agile?
Agile isn't just something for IT teams. It's something for the whole organization. And if you don't put your customer in the frame during product development from beginning to end, your competitors will.
Yeah. And it will naturally create that competitive advantage, won't it? They'll build flow, they'll build capability, they'll go forward.
Yeah, if you don't talk to your customers, they will.
Yeah. I think on that topic, Joe, I've got a really interesting one that I see. I work with BHP, which is one of the world's biggest miners, and they have a monthly integration with internal customers. You got the what should I say? You've got the drill team going to talk to the blast team who puts the bombs down. And each month they have an iterative conversation to learn and see how it's going and what they need to do differently. And then they come back to their backlog and they...
Oh, that sounds like fun. I want to go to their stand-ups.
Yeah, they're cool. So there's so many sites around the world, guys. There's some in South America, some in Canada, but a lot in Australia. So people can engage. But, I guess like you're saying, this can be used anywhere. Hospitals, you name it, but the outcomes you get are insane. Brad, what would be your enterprise excellence 2-minute tip on human-centered agile?
I think it would be to really, as you start bringing these things in, to do it intentionally so that you're not just sort of throwing bodies at a team or at a program and bring your UX in, and to let go of the idea. One of the big things that we often hear is you can't boil the ocean, right? You can't see around every corner. And we're not trying to do that. And the tip is you can learn a lot, really far upstream that's going to save you, heartache or money or whatever else it's going to save you without it becoming a massive burdensome process. You can bring this in at a smart level for you.
Yeah, it's amazing. I guess like you both mentioned throughout the show, I'm guessing it's like understanding these 6 key elements of creating human-centered agile and then creating your way. I think you've both mentioned that multiple times throughout the episode, and I really appreciate that approach, because I guess the old cookie cutter approach can't be rolled out to everyone, can it?
It really can't.
No. So guys, you've got the book coming out, and I think by the time this show's out, the book will be launched. Where can people get hold of the book, and how can people also reach out to you both to learn more and get help?
Right. So the book is available on Amazon, paperback, Kindle. There's even a hardcover edition if you would like that. And we've got our emails set up. So I'm happy to give folks our email addresses if they'd like to reach out to me. So I'm Joe at humancenteredagile.com, and Brad is Brad at humancenteredagile.com.
Yeah, we didn't really want to complicate it too much.
Keep it simple. That's awesome.
Yeah.
It's the agile way. Well, guys, I really appreciate everything you have done in the past and accumulated into this amazing book, and everything I know you guys will keep doing to the future. Thanks for helping us create a better future, guys. Really appreciate it. Oh,
we appreciate you having us and for waking up early to do this recording.
For listeners all over the world, it's a very common trait for me. So I hope I don't come across tired at times. But often in Brisbane, when I'm recording, it's about 4 a.m. in the morning, 5 a.m. in the morning. But it's a sweet spot for me when it's quiet, and it's easy for my guests, which is me being human-centered design, agile with what I do. Guys, thanks again.
We appreciate the conversation.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys. Bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.
What a great episode. Remember, you can go to the Enterprise Excellence Podcast website under downloads to get hold of the persona and empathy map template we've put up there to help your human-centered agile journey. There were 2 key takeaways for me from this episode. Firstly, the conversation around an agile team having access for users or customers. When a team is disconnected from external customers, they can lose understanding and connectivity with these, which is critical to people doing design and improvement, even execution efforts towards customers. Establishing systems and approaches for teams to stay connected with customers is a powerful approach, whether that be an agile development team or within an operational or factory team deploying agile. The ability for a team to directly learn from customers is such a powerful part of enterprise excellence. The second key takeaway for me was having design autonomy built into agile teams. Agile is so much about team autonomy, having aligned teams that can autonomously execute towards their aligned vision and goals. When a team has autonomy to create, improve, and achieve great things for customers, this builds a level of ownership and commitment second to none. Thanks again for your time and knowledge, Joe and Brad. Thanks for helping us create a better future. Bye for now.